Good morning, everybody. Nice, cold, crisp morning here in the Lake Fork area. Northeast Texas is about to get cold, cold, cold. Last Christmas, we were warm, 60-degree type Christmas, felt like Florida. And this time, Northeast Texas is something else. I've lived here for 9 years now, going on 10 years, and no two seasons have been alike. It's really unique. 2016, bass were spawning in January. Literally January 8th, I remember Lee Live posting a picture of bed fishing for an 8-pounder or an 8 to 10 pound fish potentially on January 8th, 2016. But here we are. It's going to get cold. We're looking at 10 degrees and 22 degrees on Friday for the high, 10 low. Add some wind chill factor, and boy, this is going to be a cold one. What's that do to Lake Fork? What's that do to fishing? It gets it kind of where it needs to be. So real quick, I'm going to tell you the lake conditions. We're at 39792, which is just a little bit, about 5 foot 1 inch below full pool. 0 to 1 clarity and low 50s for the water temperature. But finally getting cold. I think that's the answer on Lake Fork in the fall. We're out of fall now. We're winter. Those big fish start showing up. As soon as it gets cold again, they show up. As we've discussed in the past, not what's wrong with Lake Fork in the fall, but what's going on with Lake Fork in the fall. We've talked about this a whole lot in the public report. I told you I talked to a really, really reputable, not just reputable, one of the best guides ever on this lake for an hour in depth, and we had the same conclusions, the same concurrence of what we've experienced every fall for the last 4 or 5 years. We talked about Mark Pack saying the same thing before he passed, that fall was really being devastated. I've done a lot of thinking, I've done a lot of talking to you guys who watched the videos. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I think I've come to a conclusion, and I wish there was a way to test it. But I just was talking about this morning with someone again. I said, we have a great spring. The fish are all over the place. We have a great summer, July. August, it starts to get a bit hot. It's hard to fish, but the night bite's good, and we're catching fish. September comes around, and we have the Big Bass Splash. Big Bass Splash has over 1,000 usually boats. There's 1,600, 1,800 individual anglers. And man, you can simply look at the archives, look at the records, and see that the Big Bass Splash for the last 3 years has been phenomenal. They end up weighing in 20 plus overs through the 3 days. There are thousands of fish weighed in the under category. And it is a good event. It's incredible. Well, 3 weeks later, the Berkeley event follows it. Now, the Berkeley event has a few less anglers. Okay, usually a couple hundred boats, 300-400 less anglers. But the statistics are raw compared to the Big Bass Splash. And this morning when I was discussing it, I heard myself express what I witnessed, what I've seen, and I heard it clearly. Fishing was great. March, April, May, June, July. It was awesome. August, dog days of summer change it a little, hit and miss, but still good fishing. September, excellent fishing. Big Bass Splash shows up and they hammer them. They have 24 overs or 27 overs 2 years ago, 23 overs this year. 3 weeks later, with pretty much no changes. Sometimes the lake will turn over in that interim of 3 weeks, but this year there was no change from the September event, Big Bass Splash, and October event of Berkeley. There was no change whatsoever in the water temperatures, in the conditions, or anything, but there was a massive, massive change in the number of fish caught and how many overs were caught. And when I said this to a person this morning when I was talking to him, it just clicked. That it's these massive tournaments that are hammering these fish. In the spring, we have a few of them. We have the Skeeter event, and us guides know that week right after the Skeeter event, it's a bit tough, but it comes back around. We know that we got the Mega Bass, a lot of boats on the Mega Bass. It's early in the season, it doesn't seem to affect it. The back-to-back thing, 3 weeks apart, 2 massive tournaments, massive tournaments. And I want you to think of this. If there's 1,800 entries, there's 900 boats in the Big Bass Splash. If just half of those anglers, 900 boats, let's use simple math, 1,000 anglers weigh in 2 or 3 fish a day, Let's make it 3, so easy math. There's 1,800 anglers that fish the thing. 1,000 of them weigh in 3 times each day. That's 3,000 fish a day times 3 days. That's 9,000 fish that take a boat ride in a live well, get put in a bag, get drug up to the top, stand in line, get weighed, taken out of the bag, put on the plate, put back in the bag, put in a tank, and released. I think what I'm saying is a mouthful right there. In 3 days, sometimes 7,000 to 10,000 fish lake-wide are caught and take a boat ride. Now we're on to something. I don't know what the death rate is of those fish. I have no idea. I'm not a biologist, but it can't be very good. I'm not so sure that between the Berkeley and that big bass splash, that there's a few other elements, turnover, that blah blah, but I'm not so sure. Now I'm really leaning towards that is the biggest, most brutal effect why Lake Fork in the fall does not fish well anymore. Again, not to be redundant, but October, November, I could go any lake around here. You could pick it. I've never been there before. You tell me where to go in 60-mile radius around this lake, around this area, and I would go catch fish in the simple, typical fall patterns. Square bills, spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, weightless flukes, shallow, on the banks, just like they're supposed to be, textbook fall fishing. Why not Fork? So I believe we just pinpointed that. I want to make sure I was clear. Just my opinion as always, and there's more than one way to skin a cat, but there's nobody out there, and I will say this very strongly, there is no guide out there that had an awesome fall. There's no local that had an awesome fall. I'm not saying he didn't catch some. I'm not saying it wasn't hit and miss, but there's nobody out there that has the answer, and there has to be an answer. And whether those fish died and are gone, I don't think that either. I know a lot of the spring fish that we were catching, they didn't die, they're gone. So combination of all these things, these 1, 2, 3 punches, the fish are doing something different. The big fish disappear because they're doing something different. You got all these small fish. How come we're not catching the small fish? Because they just got drug around by the thousands and beat up twice, 2 big tournaments. Lake turns over. All these variables all at once make Lake Fork be what it is in the fall. I wish we could just do a test. I wish for 1 year they could move the Berkeley and the big bass into spring sometime, leave the fall alone, and just see what happens. And just find out, just one time, just for the test, to answer the question, is that the biggest effect on Lake Fork for the fall? But anyways, fishing right now. It's getting cold. Water's getting cold. After this week, it's going to get even colder. It's going to do 2 things. It's going to drive them deep. Time to break out your spoons, no doubt, and your deep Alabama rigs on the roads and stuff like that. Get into creek swings with your jigs, okay? The other thing is, if you're a live scoper, now's the time to throw the jerk baits. Now is the best time. Once this water gets below 50 degrees, these fish suspend in the trees out in the middle of nowhere, the mouths of the coves. Okay, and the reason they suspend on these trees is that they can go down and up on a daily basis, and they do not have to move or travel. That's saving energy. That is very little movement. Okay, they're at 6, 8 feet when it's not good. They're at 2 feet sunbathing when it's shiny. Okay, live scope in the next January and February, 2 months, is the dominating factor on Lake Fork with jerkbaits. Okay, that's your public information. Hopefully you take heed of that. You can throw a few other things at those same fish. Live scope, find them suspending in the trees. Throw spinnerbaits, throw swim jigs, throw Alabama rigs. But honestly, the jerkbait seems to be the most effective on those fish, okay? Remember that in super, super cold water, really, really cold water, soft plastics stiffen up and don't look so well. And the water gets too cold, they can actually not get bit because they look unrealistic. They literally, in really like 38, 42, 43 degree water, some soft plastics, even jigs and skirts, they look funny in the water. It looks abnormal. So just kind of pay attention to your baits when you're in the water like that. Other than that, so I've mentioned a couple things. I talked about creek swings, jigs in the creek swings. That would be what Mark Pack would do right now. He'd get in the creek swings and he absolutely would be throwing jigs, black and blue jigs and black and browns, black and ambers. He'd be throwing those in the creek swings. If you're wondering what a creek swing is, then I highly suggest you consider subscribing to my Let's Talk Fishing channel, where I do a weekly lesson very, very detailed, very descriptive, and I teach about those kinds of things. I absolutely have, I think I have a board here still with a description on it, a detailed creek swing, the channel, the deeper side, the point side, and I go into a 25-minute lesson about what a creek swing is, how to fish it, where to put the boat, what angles to cast, all this in-depth information. So again, if you're wondering, you want to learn more, subscribe to the Let's Talk Fishing channel. If you just want to know more report about what's happening on Lake Fork, then just upgrade from the public to simple members only channel. But you can easily access that. Click on the members join and decide which one of those two that you would like to do. But come aboard, come check us out. It's growing again. The next channel is growing so fast that people are loving it and making comments about it. In fact, if you watch my Facebook, find me on Facebook, Mike McFarland, or business page, The Lake Fork Guide, or Instagram, The Lake Fork Guide. I'm going to share a post or a comment that a Let's Talk Fishing client or a member gave. And it says it all. So they are very happy with the content that they're being given, and they're going to get more, especially when next spring kicks off and we're catching these big giant fish like we did last year. All right? Hit the like button if you found this good. Comment below. Have a, I guess I'll see you again Thursday. We'll do another public rundown, so I was going to wish you Merry Christmas, but have a great day today. Stay warm the next few days, and thank you. Appreciate you following. Mike McFarland, The Lake Fork Guide.